Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sunday Night Ghost Stories on a Sunday, as nature intended. Here we are in the library. We got the fire on tonight because it's a little bit chilly. Just turns camera around a bit. That's better. Yeah, it's a bit chilly tonight. But what are we reading? We are reading the incredibly brilliant Scottish Ghosts, which is really absolutely banging, loving it, absolutely loving it. What are we drinking tonight? 2 beer strategy tonight. So we're kicking off with Mourne Mountains Brewery Mourne Mist Pilsner. Mourne Mist, Mourne. I haven't even touched a drop yet. Mourne Mist is a crisp Czech-style pilsner inspired by the misty allure of Northern Ireland's Mourne Mountains. Saaz and Magnum hops bring a delicate floral and earthy bitterness, perfectly balancing the malt's smooth, clean profile. Mourne Mist is refreshingly light yet colourful, evoking the cool, mist-laden air of the mountains in every sip. This pilsner is a homage to the Irish landscape, offering a taste as pure and invigorating as the Mourne Mountains. 4.5%. So ingredients: water, barley, wheat, hops, yeast, contains gluten. So it's amazing how these all contain pretty much the same ingredients, but they can be radically different kind of beers and pilsners and lagers and things. So, right, haven't even read a damn story yet, and already we have a dead soldier. And Run VT.
Oh, it's jolly nice of you. Hello, dead soldier. Seen plenty of those in my time.
Indeed. And we're washing it down tonight with the Western Gold Honey from Lidl. Shall we get on with ghost stories? Because I's get hungry and I want some supper, if you don't mind. So, Newton Castle. Oh, in case you're wondering where Derpy is, he is... Turns camera around. There he is. He's on the pillow behind me. I'm just going to have a look to see if I can scoosh up a bit more. I think I can, actually. I think, yeah, we've got plenty of space. Don't want to disturb him. Newton Castle. Newton Castle, Blair Gowrie, dates from the 14th century and is haunted by the ghost of Lady Jean. Her story is well known. She was Lady Jean Drummond, Baldock's mother, and she fell desperately in love with a local laird. He dallied with her for a while, but had become distracted by another woman. In order to win back the affection of her beloved, Lady Jean did her very best to make herself attractive. She dressed in finest silks and satins, wore shoes with silver buckles, and adorned her braided hair with pearls and precious stones. The transformation in her appearance, however, was not enough to bring the heartless scoundrel back. She took to spending her time singing mournful songs of lost love as she sat alone in a tower of the castle. Sorry, the beer yawns. I haven't even had a beer yet. Eventually, she sought the advice of a local witch. The witch told her that her fine clothes were no good. She must dress in the witchen claith o' green. In order to do this, she must cut some grass from the churchyard, take a branch of a rowan tree from the gallows knowe, and bind them together with a plaited reed. Then she was to take them as darkness was falling to the Corby stone by the cobble pool and sit there and wait. This Lady Jean did. After waiting for some time, she became aware of the sound of laughter. She could feel a strange sensation as if something was pulling at her clothes. She fell asleep, and when she awoke at dawn, she was dressed all in green. Isn't that an It Bites song? Oh, that's all in red. The magic of the witch had worked, for Jean married her great love, Lord Ronald, still wearing the witchen claith. Her new husband was quite besotted with his bride in her strange green dress. The wedding ceremony had hardly taken place, however, than disaster struck. Lord Ronald looked at his bride and saw that something was far wrong. He took her hand in his, but it felt deathly cold. Then, to his horror, Jean let out an unearthly scream, fell to the ground, and died. Her lifeless body was laid out on the bed where the wedding couple were to have consummated the marriage. Lady Jean was buried nearby, and her gravestone is said to turn round 3 times each Halloween. Then the sound of her sad singing comes wafting from the tower at Newton Castle. Oh, excuse me. Goodness me. It's been a... What time was I up this morning, Derps? I think I woke up about 4 o'clock and ended up listening to a couple of Smirchpod podcasts. Eventually drifted back off to sleep after playing the New York Times game for about an hour, and then woke up at about 9 o'clock. So rock and roll, folks. So this is this Pilsner, Morn Mist Pilsner, Morn Mountains Brewery. Is it Northern Ireland? Doesn't say. It is Northern Ireland. In the magnificent Rush beer glass. Thank you, viewers Kirsten and Steve in the United States. Slange me bar. Quite delicate and floral, that. And a big hello to viewer David, by the way. Anquahar Castle. Anquahar Castle, once home of the Crichtons of Dumfries, stands in ruins now, but remains the haunt of the ghost of a man called John Wilson. John Wilson was the innocent party in a dispute that was going on in the late 1950s. John Wilson was the innocent party in a dispute that was going on in the late 1590s between Sir Thomas Kirkpatrick, John's master, and Douglas of Drumlanrig, ally of Robert Crichton, Lord of Sanquhar and Sheriff of Nithsdale. As an act of sheer spite against Wilson's master, Crichton had John locked up in jail, falsely accused of certain crimes. When Sir Thomas Kirkpatrick tried to protest Wilson's innocence, Crichton retaliated by having Wilson hanged. Wilson's ghost, groaning and rattling its chains, haunts the ruins of Sanquhar Castle as a testament of its one-time owner's barbarism and cruelty. A second female ghost is also said to haunt Sanquhar. She is a white lady with long, pale tresses, quite beautiful to behold. So they say. Nobody is certain as to the identity of the white lady, although she is possibly the ghost of Marion of Del Pedar, who disappeared suspiciously in the 1590s and was thought perhaps to have befallen an unfortunate fate at the hands of Robert Crichton. In the 1870s, excavations around the castle uncovered the remains of a woman buried in a pit. The skeleton still had some hair attached to the skull. The hair was long and blonde. Was this the skeleton of the White Lady of Sanquhar Castle? I'll find out at some stage how you pronounce that. Anyway. Oh, I need to warm up a bit. It's reached chilly up here tonight, so slange me for everybody. Oh, cheers me beers. So viewer David says Bangaranga. Lost on me. Wasn't they an 80s band? No, it was Bananarama. Right. Spedlin's Tower. Spedlin's Tower in Dumfriesshire was once upon a time haunted by a particularly hungry ghost. At the end of the 17th century, Spedlins was the property of Sir Alexander Jardine, brother-in-law of the first Duke of Queensberry, William Douglas. One of the laird's tenants, a miller by the name of Dunty, so close to being dusty. One of the laird's tenants, a miller by the name of Dunty Porteous, fell out of favour with his master. The laird, having right of pit and gallows, apprehended Porteous and took him to Spedlins. Porteous was locked in the dungeon of the tower to await judgment and suitable punishment for his misdemeanours. It was a grim place to sit and ponder one's fate, an underground pit with no light source. The only access to the dungeon was through a trap door. No sooner had Dunty Porteous been put away than Sir Alexander had to leave Spedlins to attend to some business in the capital city. He would have to deal with Dunty on his return. Unfortunately, when the laird set off for Edinburgh, he took the key of the dungeon with him. In his absence, it would appear that either Dunty was forgotten about or nobody thought to break down the door of the dungeon and come to his aid. Whatever was the case, Dunty was abandoned with tragic consequences. Come in. Sometime later, when Sir Alexander finally returned to Spedlins and the dungeon was unlocked, Dunty was found to have died of starvation. It is said that in the agonies of his dreadful hunger, the poor prisoner had chewed at his own hands. Any regret that Sir Alexander felt for what had happened was clearly not great enough, for as soon as the spirit of Dunty Porteous was released from the confines of the dreadful dungeon, it started to run riot at Spedlins. Dunty's ghost was persistent and troublesome, running through Spedlin's Tower, screaming out in pain and hunger, crying for mercy and food. The spirit would give no peace to the Jardine family. Eventually, a chaplain was summoned to try to exorcise the ghost. His efforts were not entirely successful, for the ghost would not go away. Nevertheless, after a concerted effort, the minister and the family were able to confine Dunty's raging spirit to the dungeon with the help of a Bible that was left at the site. In time, the binding of the Bible became worn and needed to be repaired, so it was sent to Edinburgh to be rebound. No sooner had the Bible left the premises than Dunty's ghost was on the loose again, tormenting the laird and his family as before. The Bible had to be repaired and returned with all possible haste in order to contain the ghost once again. The Jardine family eventually moved from Spedlins. The ghost of Dunty followed them, but the Bible was moved too, and Dunty remained subdued. I'm sure I've read these stories before. I'm just having a look. Perhaps it's because I've read them in other forms. I know I haven't read this book because it's a new book. So, itchy ears. Oh, some fan mail. Let's see who the fan mail's from. Facebook Messenger. Okay. Friend Ian, right. Who's Sister Wendy? Sister Wendy Art. Sister Wendy. Sister Wendy Beckett. Good Lord. That was a blast from the past. Cheers, me beers. Oh, lovely. Strange. Oh, lovely. Tirham Castle. Tirham Castle has been uninhabited for more than 2 centuries, but the ruins that remain are sufficient to indicate to the visitor that it was indeed an impressive site in its heyday, standing in spectacular surroundings, high on a rock overlooking the sea in North Argyll. It was a seat of the MacDonalds of Clan Ranald and had a colourful warfaring history. The 12th chief of Clan Ranald was John, who succeeded to his title in the late 1670s. He was a violent man, given to outbursts of temper with a distinctly sadistic touch by all accounts. Obviously the local Reform MP these days. It is John, rather than his ancestral home, with which this story is concerned, for it was the man rather than his castle that was haunted. Perhaps it was because of all the wrong things he had done, which was certainly what most people suspected. But the reason does not really matter. John was haunted, not by a green lady or the spectre of one of the victims of his many cruelties. He was haunted by a frog, a hideous black creature of demonic proportions. It is remarkable how close this story comes to the fairy tale of the Princess and the Frog. Just as the princess in the fairy tale was pursued relentlessly by her frog, so John found that he was unable to shake off his own slimy follower. If he left it locked in a room, it found its way out and appeared beside him again. If he tried to ride away, the frog would appear alongside him in the saddle. The frog was always there, whatever he was doing, whether he was asleep or awake. On one occasion, John tried to sail away from the castle, only to find the frog swimming alongside the boat. When he refused to let the frog on board, the weather turned so bad that all the people in the boat thought they might drown. John reluctantly let the frog onto the boat, whereupon, it is said, the weather turned calm once more, almost instantly. Perhaps if John had kissed the frog, as the princess in the fairy tale did, he might have found that it turned into something altogether more desirable. But he did not, and his frog did not turn into anything else. The hideous creature remained with him, a constant but unwelcome companion. The hideous creature remained with him, a constant but unwelcome companion to the end of his days. We're up to 20 minutes. I'm damn sure we've read this book before. Oh, well, if we have, we have. Cheers, me beers. Oh, slange. Other haunted castles. The stories of the castles in this chapter are just a taste of the hundreds of stories that the ancient fortifications of Scotland have to tell. They are some of the better known ones, but they are not necessarily the most intriguing to the eager ghost hunter and others with interests in all things supernatural. Again. They are some of the better known ones, but they are not necessarily the most intriguing to the eager ghost hunter and others with interests in all things supernatural. Other castles that are said to be haunted make a long list indeed, but among them are the following. Ardvrek Castle, the ghost of a former lady of Ardvrek. Balcomie Castle, the ghost of a young boy locked in a dungeon and starved to death. Borthwick Castle, the ghost of Mary, Queen of Scots, and the ghost of a young girl impregnated and then murdered by Lord Borthwick. Brodick Castle, the ghost of an unknown man and the ghost of a deer. Buchanan Castle, anonymous groans. Culzean Castle, a ghostly piper and a woman in a ball gown. Ducal Castle, the ghost of an excommunicated monk. I bet his name was Harry. Inverary Castle, the ghost of a Duns Castle, the ghost of a young soldier. Inverary Castle, the ghost of a murdered servant boy. Kelly Castle, the ghost of Anne Erskine, who fell from an upper story window. Meginch Castle, shut up, Meg. Meginch Castle, the ghosts of two chattering old ladies. Needpath Castle, a white lady. New Park Castle, the ghosts of women and children slaughtered by covenanting forces. Skybow Castle, the ghost of a girl lured to the castle by a servant and murdered by him. Wemyss Castle, a green lady. Oh, ladies and gents, I is so hungry tonight. Did have a big breakfast this morning. I had lovely overnight oats this morning with a banana and some seeds and a protein bar broken up into it as well. So it was very filling. So cheers, me beers. Oh, let's lounge. Religious haunts. Ha ha ha. Ruined cathedrals, dark corners of country churches, abbeys and priories can all quite easily take on a haunted appearance. Vaults, crypts and graveyards are full of secrets of the dead. Hooded monks, are they called Harry? Let's find out, look like ghosts as they glide soundlessly along shadowy corridors. Members of the clergy, servants of God, are constantly engaged in the fight against sin and hence the devil. It is only to be expected, therefore, that there are numerous stories of ghosts that torment members of the clergy, spirits that frequent religious meeting places, and spectres that lurk in sacred burial places. Some of these stories are undoubtedly fictitious. Others, however, merit closer consideration, especially when the ghost is thought to be that of a real figure in history, and when the presence of a spirit has been witnessed independently by more than one person, previously unaware of its supposed existence. Sorry, folks, the phone's going off here at the moment. I'm getting messages galore from adoring fans. Let's just read the adoring fan messages. No, who's Sister Wendy, really? Dalla Rossi. Sundays in most parts of Scotland in modern times are days when families can choose to do more or less as they wish. Shopping in one of the many big shopping centres that have grown up around the major towns is a popular pastime, while other people may choose to spend the day catching up on do-it-yourself activities or working in the garden. Sports centres and swimming pools are open, and there are Sunday leagues for amateur sports of various kinds. For those who wish to spend the day in a more relaxed fashion, there are plenty of restaurants, pubs and hotels around the country where a leisurely lunch and a few glasses of wine can be enjoyed. All this is a far cry from the days when the Sabbath in Scotland was a day reserved strictly for God and for rest. There are some parts of Scotland where the Sabbath is still observed to some degree, and where some of the above pastimes are frowned upon. But even in those places, the restrictions upon the activities of the God-fearing are considerably fewer than in days of old. In days gone by, it was unthinkable to venture from home for any other reason than to go to church. Children were not allowed out to play, and no one was supposed to work. For women, the Sabbath must have brought quite a welcome break from cooking and cleaning. Sport was taboo on the Sabbath, as were playing cards, gambling, and drinking. To break the laws of the Sabbath was believed to invite all sorts of terrible retribution. I'm just going to scrunch up a bit here. That's better. There are quite a few stories about people who break the Sabbath, cautionary tales to warn others of the consequences of succumbing to temptation. Some appear elsewhere in this book. The story of Beardy of Glamis Castle, for example, in the previous chapter, page 71, and it says, for example, in the previous chapter, page 71, but we're actually missing the parentheses of a, what do you call them, bracket. We're missing a bracket here. Anyway, the story of Beardy of Glamis Castle, for example, in the previous chapter, bracket, page 71, close bracket, and the story of the fisherman at Kyle Skoo in hotels and public houses, brackets, page 129, close brackets. This story does not concern one individual, however, but a whole team of sportsmen. Goodness me. 20 miles or so from Inverness stands the parish church of Dalla Rossi, and just beside the parish church is the glebe, a patch of land that was used in times gone by as an area of recreation. The story tells us that two families, the Shaws of Strathnairn and the Macintoshes of Strathdairn, had arranged to have a game of shinty on the glebe on Christmas Day. When the game was first suggested, the Macintoshes willingly agreed, but then found out that Christmas Day was to fall on the Sabbath that year, and decided to call the whole thing off. When their opponents turned up, all ready to play, they found that the Macintoshes were not coming at all. The Shaws, however, were not quite so easily put off. There were enough people present to form two teams amongst themselves, so they divided up and played a game regardless. The game was a great success, and it was thought that no harm had come as a result of their breaking the Sabbath. It seems they were tragically mistaken, for it is said that during the course of the following year, every man who had played on that day died. The ghostly shinty players returned to Dalla Rossi once a year. Every Christmas they play their game on the glebe as they did all those years ago on that fateful Sabbath. That's it, folks. Half time. We have reached the halfway mark. Cheers, me beers. Oh, lovely. Flange. Oh, lovely. We can finally break into the wasabi mix. Oh, lovely. Well, part deux of tonight's beer is Blackbird Extra Stout, brewed under the watchful eyes of the liver birds. Roasted barley, flaked oats, and a selection of dark malts are combined to create a robust dark stout with notes of coffee, rich toffee, and chocolate, finished with a lingering tannic bitterness. A special release from Love Lane. Love Lane Brewery, 62 to 64 Bridgewater Street, but not that Bridgewater. Baltic Triangle, Liverpool, L10AY. Love Lane Brewery. Did I show you the can from? That was the Morning Mist Pilsner. Love Lane Brewery. Love this because I think it's only £1.29 a can from Home Bargains. So winner, winner, Christmas dinner. So what have we been doing today? We did do a little bit of gardening. We did sow some more seeds. I sowed some more Nigella and a few other bits and pieces. I forget what they were now. Searches for phone. Just as a reminder, what did I do? Oh, yeah, I also sowed some more sweet corn. So I've got quite a bit of sweet corn on the go at the moment, and some other bits and pieces. Oh, I've got some French beans on the go. I'm just having a look at my images here. French beans on the go, and what have we got there? We've got pumpkins on the go. They need to be planted out pretty soon. Oh, the beer burps at 33 minutes and 43 seconds. Laura sweet corn. So Laura's got some sweet corn on the go. I've got some sunflowers, sweet peas. No, sorry, that's purple sprouting broccoli, sweet peas. I don't know what they are. They're probably more sunflowers or more pumpkins. I'm just having a look, and yeah, so full on day, absolutely marvelous. I'm just gonna have some more wasabi mix. So what I need to do this week is actually plant my sweet peas out. I've got some pots ready for them, and I've got canes for them as well. And also have a monster catch up with Gardener's World on BBC Two. What do you reckon, Derp? I think Derp's agreeing with me. I need a monster catch up on Gardener's World on BBC Two. Just have a quick look to see what have I got. Oh, I do declare, I do actually have a Kit Kat in here. I think we'll have some more wasabi mix first. Then we might have a bit of Kit Kat. The only thing about the wasabi mix is because it's mustard, it goes right up your nose. It does clear your sinuses out, I'll give you that. So, right, let's crack on. Durness. In Durness in Sutherland, a story is told of a manse that was haunted by a particularly ominous spirit. According to the legend, the spirit first manifested itself many years ago when the minister in Durness became aware of the sound of knocking at his front door. The knocking became a regular occurrence. As the minister never heard anyone approaching the door, he was suspicious and did not answer the knocks. After several repetitions of the strange phenomenon, the minister invited a colleague, the minister from Kinloch Bervie, to call on him one night. He did not give the reason for his invitation. The minister from Kinloch Bervie duly made the journey to Durness and settled down for a pleasant evening. After some time had passed, the men heard a knocking at the front door. The Durness minister asked his friend if he'd answer it. The Durness minister asked his friend if he would answer it, and his friend obliged, having no idea that the knocking meant anything sinister. The Kinloch Bervie minister cheerfully went and opened the door, only to be faced with the fearful apparition of an old man wrapped in a shroud. Terrified, he saddled his horse at once and rode back to Kinloch Bervie with all possible speed. He had not escaped the clutches of the terrible death spirit, however. It is said that barely a month later, although he was a man of robust health and only in his mid-40s, the Kinloch Bervie minister died suddenly and mysteriously. The tragedy became a double one when his wife followed him to the grave very shortly afterwards. It seems unfair that the minister from Durness should survive unscathed after such cowardly behaviour on his own part, but it would appear that the deathly figure that came to his door had no sense of justice. It seemed rather to want to take whomever it could. Definitely don't remember reading that one. So, Slansbury Brewery. Oh, that Love Lane Brewery beer is absolutely brilliant. This could be our new favourite beer, everybody. Love Lane Blackbird. Look at that. Absolutely brilliant. And being Liverpool, and me being a Liverpool fan, I'm not going to deny it has a certain resonance. Right. There we go. And so I'm trying to find the blessed video here. Dead Soldier and Run VT.
Oh, it's jolly nice of you. Hello, Dead Soldier. Seen plenty of those in my time.
I was just going to check something on my phone there for a second. Leg. At the end of the 18th century, there lived in Leg in Sutherland a mildly eccentric minister. In spite of being a humble clergyman, the Reverend Thomas Mackay is said to have dressed in much grander ecclesiastical attire. He died early in the 1800s, and the manse was thereafter occupied by ministers with more sober habits of dress. The minister who lived in the manse in 1826, which is almost 6:30, had two daughters, and it was they who saw the ghost for the first time. They heard a knock at the front door and went to answer it. When they opened the door, they saw an old man standing on the doorstep dressed in a long black robe. He said nothing but peered into the house for a few moments before turning away from the girls and walking off. The girls thought that the visitor might be looking for their father, so they ran to find him. When their father came to greet the visitor, there was no sign of the old man, either at the door or in the surrounding area. It seemed as if he had vanished completely. When the family told some other older parishioners about their strange old visitor and described his appearance and attire, the parishioners were able to enlighten them as to their visitor's identity. It was none other than the Reverend Thomas Mackay paying a visit to his former home. The manse is no longer there. It fell into disrepair and became a ruin. However, the Reverend Thomas Mackay is said to pop back from time to time to visit the site where it once stood. It is said that one night his appearance stopped the activities of two poachers in the neighborhood. When they heard strange noises coming from the vicinity. When they heard strange noises coming from the vicinity of the former manse, they abandoned all ideas of a profitable night's work and fled. What are we up to? 43 minutes. We'll try to go for a pure hour tonight, so I think I'll have some more wasabi snack mix. Fan mail's turning up left, right, and centre here, but I was just curious as to the football scores. No, okay. I'm just having a look to see. Oh, yeah, Newcastle are clear. Leeds are clear. Yep, no, that's fine. Reg will be happy. Let's crack on, shall we? Leg. Oh, I read that one. Melrose Abbey. The ruins of Melrose Abbey are believed to be the haunt of a rather more sinister ghost than some. Several people have reported noticing a strange chill in the atmosphere near the place where a man called Michael Scott was buried in the late 13th century. Michael Scott was a very intelligent man of great learning, interested in philosophy and science. During his lifetime, he acquired a reputation as a practitioner of the black arts, and he was said to possess strange supernatural powers. It may have been the case that he was simply rather a scary intellectual whose brain and knowledge seemed threatening to those whose brain and knowledge seemed threatening to other less educated or intelligent people, or reform voters as we call them. Nevertheless, he was a man who inspired fear among many people, both in life and after death. The site of his grave in the abbey is believed to be haunted by his spirit. The sensations that are felt by those who are sensitive to such things are not pleasant ones. Many people reportedly have felt an ominous chill in the air when they have stood in the vicinity. Stories of vampirism and other crimes, sometimes attributed to Michael Scott, sometimes to a monk, is he called Harry? Let's find out, who fell from grace in ancient times, are also associated with Melrose Abbey. A ghostly figure that has been reportedly seen sliding like a snake along the ground in the abbey ruins is taken to be the manifestation of this spirit. Bam, bam, bam. Incroyable. Oops, drops the book. Wasabi mix. Strange. In the magnificent United Federation of Planet shot glass, again courtesy of viewers Kirsten and Steve in the United States. Cheers, me beers. Oh, lovely. Iona. The tiny island of Iona off the west coast of Scotland is visited by many hundreds of people every year. It is a place of historical interest and pilgrimage, and it is here that St. Columba landed from Ireland to begin his mission of spreading the word of God in Scotland in the 6th century. Kings of Scotland from ancient times are buried on Iona, and today the island is a religious centre of quite considerable significance. Iona was attacked by the Vikings on several occasions in times gone by, and the monastery of St. Columba had to be restored repeatedly. The ghostly forms of Viking longboats are still said to visit the island from time to time. The ships glide into the harbour by night, and eerie figures scramble ashore, reenacting over and over again their desecration of this sacred place. Monks, any called Harry, let's find out, have been reported as having been seen in various places on the island, especially in the vicinity. Monks have been reported as having been seen at various places on the island, especially in the area of the monastery, and the sound of their chanting has also been heard on several occasions. Up to 49 minutes, got 10 minutes of this nonsense, 10 minutes of this quality entertainment to go. I think we're going to get to the end of the chapter on religious haunts tonight, so Perth. In the early years of the 19th century, an Edinburgh priest who had moved to Perth, called Father Mackay, was approached by a woman who had been troubled for some time by a conscience-stricken ghost. The problem was solved without need for exorcism or dramatic intervention of any kind. Anne Simpson, the woman who sought Father Mackay's assistance, was not of the Catholic faith, but she had good reason for asking the help of a Catholic priest. It turned out that the ghost that had been appearing to her night after night was that of a woman whom she had known as a familiar figure around the army barracks nearby. The woman's name was Malloy, and she had worked in the barracks laundry. Mrs. Malloy's ghost, when it appeared to Anne Simpson, was most persistent. Mrs. Malloy owed money, 3 shillings and 10 pence. She wanted Anne Simpson to tell a priest and ask him to set matters right. So here was Anne Simpson, tired of constantly interrupted sleep, doing the bidding of a ghost. Lesser men might have sent the poor woman away and told her to stop talking such nonsense, but Father Mackay listened to her story patiently and assured her that he would see what he could do. He made inquiries at the barracks first of all. Sure enough, there had been a woman called Malloy working there, but she had died some time before. Had she owed any money to anybody in the barracks? The priest wanted to know. Should be a question mark there. No, she had not owed any money there. The priest had to take his search a little farther afield. Visiting local traders, he found himself in the grocer's shop. When he asked about Mrs. Malloy, he discovered that when she had died, she was in debt to the grocer. And the amount of the debt, 3 shillings and 10 pence exactly. The kindly priest settled the outstanding amount. And left the shop. When he saw Anne Simpson some days later, he asked whether Mrs. Malloy's ghost had appeared to her recently. He was quite relieved to hear that the ghost seemed to have gone. Obviously, the spirit of Mrs. Malloy felt at peace now that she had got all her affairs in order. I don't think we are going to get to the end of this chapter tonight. I'd like to, but I'm hungry and I'm a bit knackered, so cheers, me beers. Strange. Roslin Chapel. Roslin Chapel lies quite close to Edinburgh, to the south of the city. Founded in 1446, which is 2:45, by William Sinclair, Earl of Orkney, it is a popular visitor site and a place of historical, religious, and architectural interest. Historically, the chapel is the subject of much controversy. Some historians believe that the chapel had strong links in the past with the Knights Templar. Many theories have been proposed as to the supposed existence of religious relics. Some believe this includes the Holy Grail, hidden within an underground vault beneath the floor of the chapel. Oh, the beer burps again, do apologise. 56 minutes and 24 seconds. Try it again. Historically, the chapel is the subject of much controversy. Some historians believe the chapel had strong links in the past with the Knights Templar. Many theories have been proposed as to the supposed existence of religious relics. Some believe this includes the Holy Grail, hidden within an underground vault beneath the floor of the chapel. The most recent theory at the time of writing is the most astonishing, that the chapel has buried beneath it the mummified head of Christ, which was worshipped by the Knights Templar hundreds of years ago. Read that again. The most recent theory at the time of writing is the most astonishing, that the chapel has buried beneath them. Again, perfect reading, folks. The most recent theory at the time of writing is the most astonishing, that the chapel has buried beneath it the mummified head of Christ, which was worshipped by the Knights Templar hundreds of years ago. The trustees of the chapel are under constant pressure to carry out excavations to find out whether there is any truth in any of the many theories about its mysterious past. Architecturally, Roslin is interesting for several different reasons. The interior of the chapel is unusually ornate for a Scottish church and is unique amongst its contemporaries. Scottish religious buildings of the time were characteristically very plain in design, and although Roslin is essentially a Gothic building, its fanciful decoration and exotic, some would say eccentric, ornament make it stand apart from all others. There is evidence to suggest that many foreign craftsmen were employed in its construction, which would account in part for some of the decorative elements that are in evidence in the building. One piece of particular merit within the chapel is a very ornate and beautifully carved pillar known as the apprentice or prentice pillar. The apprentice pillar has a story of its own to tell. The story goes that when the chapel was being constructed, a stonemason was requested to carve this pillar in the style of a particular column in Rome. The mason was finding it difficult to reproduce the desired effect using the picture he had of the column as his only source of inspiration. To prepare himself adequately for the task, he asked to travel to Rome to see the original column for himself. A journey of this sort was quite an undertaking in those days, and the mason was away for some weeks. In the absence of his master, the stonemason's apprentice, who had been left behind, decided to try to carve a pillar himself. He studied the picture that his master had been given and set to work. When the stonemason returned from Italy, he found that the work that his apprentice had done was far superior to anything he might have been able to carve himself. In a fit of rage and jealousy, he killed his apprentice on the spot. The story of the murder is given credence by the fact that there had to be a delay between the construction of the chapel and its eventual consecration, which took place only after an act of reconciliation had been sought from the Archbishop of St. Andrews. The ghostly apprentice returned to haunt the chapel and the work of which he was so proud. His mournful figure has been seen standing beside his pillar, and the sound of his weeping has been heard by many people who have visited the chapel over the years. Another ghostly figure that frequents the chapel and its surroundings is the figure of a monk. Is he called Harry? Let's find out. Clad in grey. He has appeared to visitors on quite a few occasions, both inside and outside the chapel. Oh, this is a bummer, that we've got 2 stories left to go. And that's the end of the chapter. And I think we are going to go for the end of the chapter. It behoves us to go to the end of the chapter. So we have just punched through the hour mark. Let's go for it, Dirk. Sainsbury bar. Right, last Dirk for tonight. St. Andrew's Cathedral. St. Andrew's Cathedral, dating from the 12th century, lies in ruins now, but was once the largest cathedral in Scotland and a powerful and influential religious centre. In all, building work took almost 200 years. The royal burgh or borough of St. Andrews, in which the cathedral stands, is a very old and beautiful university town of great interest both to the historian and the ghost hunter. The cathedral has two ghosts that are particularly well known, one a woman, the other a man. In the grounds of the cathedral at St. Andrews is St. Rule's Tower, a remnant of St. Rule's Church, which was built before the cathedral and used to hold the relics of St. Andrew. It is here that the male ghost has been seen. The tower is quite high, and the view from the top, looking over the town, is well worth seeing. So it is quite a popular visiting place. One visitor to the tower several years ago was startled by a figure in a cassock who appeared as he was climbing to the top. The tourist missed his footing on one of the steps and stumbled. Far from wishing to frighten the tourist, the cowled figure had genuinely intended to be helpful, for the tourist heard him offer to give him his arm on the way up the stairs. The tourist swiftly recovered his balance, refused politely, and the figure stepped to one side to allow him to pass, and then vanished without trace. When the tourist came out of the tower at the end of his visit, he asked the man at the door whether anyone else had been in the tower at the same time as himself. The man at the door said that there had been no one else there, but he knew who or what the tourist had seen. The tourist discovered that the figure that he had seen was well known to those who knew the tower. He was a monk. Is he called Harry? Let's find out. Who would appear from time to time at St. Rule's. Not a malevolent spirit at all, it would seem, but a kindly ghost who liked to make sure that visitors made their way safely to the top of the spiral staircase. The female ghost is a white lady who has been seen in the grounds of the cathedral. The ghost was observed to be wearing white gloves. Some of the sightings may well have been fanciful, perhaps fueled by alcohol. I wouldn't know. As they were made by students returning from late night revelries. Nevertheless, the White Lady has also been seen by more sober. Nevertheless, the White Lady has been seen by more sober citizens of the town from time to time over a period of nearly 2 centuries. The identity of the White Lady is not known, but it may be that her burial place is very near. In 1868, historians investigating the tower opened a sealed vault there and discovered it to be a burial place. There were 6 or so coffins inside it. They also found, it is claimed, the mummified body of a young woman wearing white gloves. The vault was resealed, but it appears that the historians had discovered part of the answer to the mysterious appearances of the White Lady of St. Andrews. This is it, folks. We are coming towards the end of this chapter. Last story. We are going to go for the full run tonight. So cheers, my bears. So, last for tonight, Sanquhar Kirkyard. In the 18th and 19th centuries, the kirkyard at Sanquhar in the Borders achieved notoriety on account of the ghostly activities of a man called Abraham Crichton. Abraham Crichton died in 1745, which is the 5:45, in a particularly unpleasant manner after a colourful life. Crichton was a wealthy man, laird of Carco, and the owner of several properties in the area, as well as a great deal of land. However, much to the suspicion of various local people, he was declared bankrupt in 1741. His properties and land were sold off bit by bit, but rumours were circulated that Crichton was not in the dire straits that he would have people believe. He had somewhere secreted away a great deal of money. This, combined with the manner of his death, made it hardly surprising that his tortured soul would be unable to find peace. There was a disused church in the district, which had been the kirk of a former parish, that of Kirkbride. There was a disused church in the district which had been the kirk of a former parish, that of Kirkbride. For some years there had been a dispute. For some years there had been a dispute as to what to do with the building. Some locals wanted to tear it down, whilst in the opinion of others such an act amounted to sacrilege. The story goes that previous attempts to demolish the church had been unsuccessful, and that those who had taken part in the exercise found themselves the victims of considerable misfortune as a result. In the eyes of those who believed in such things, these happenings had been manifestations of the wrath of God. Beer snacks time. Bump, bump, bump. Sound. Abraham Crichton was having none of this. He wanted the church to be brought down. He engaged a group of workmen to accompany him to the building to start demolition. They set to work, but hardly had they done so than an almighty storm blew up, preventing them from getting any work done. Forced to abandon their efforts until the next day, they all set off for home. Whilst riding back from Kirkbride, Abraham Crichton met with disaster. A bolt of lightning caused his horse to rear up in panic, and Crichton was unseated. A tumble from a horse is bad enough, but one of Crichton's feet had become wedged in the stirrup, and as the horse bolted, a tumble from a horse is bad enough, but one of Crichton's feet had become wedged in the stirrup, and as the horse bolted, he was dragged along in its wake. Oh, the beer burps again. The horse galloped off at a great rate, and it did not stop, nor even slow down until it reached Dal Pedar. When the frightened beast finally drew to a halt, its owner lay by its side, lifeless and bloody. It seemed as if the death of Abraham Crichton was divine retribution. Not only had this man been dishonest in his financial dealings, said his critics, but he had also been guilty of sacrilege. He should never have tried to tear the church down. The locals shook their heads and tut-tutted self-righteously as preparations were made for Crichton's funeral. They had not seen the last of Abraham Crichton, however. Not long after he was buried in the churchyard at Sanquhar, he returned in ghostly form. The ghost of Abraham Crichton caused great consternation in the district. He would pursue passers-by in the fields next to the churchyard. He would appear suddenly in the churchyard itself, frightening the life out of anyone who happened to be there. Always he seemed to be trying to speak to those whom he followed. His hand would stretch out in entreaty, but none dared to take it. The kirkyard at Sanquhar became a place much feared in the hours of darkness. Locals would take detours in order to avoid passing close to the churchyard, as a longer walk was considered well worth the effort if it meant avoiding the ghost of Abraham Crichton. News of the haunting spread, and Sanquhar became a topic of heated debate amongst those who had any interest in matters paranormal. I think we'll have some more wasabi mix, and then that's it. We are going to wrap for tonight. At length, it was decided that something had to be done. The ghost was causing too many difficulties. A minister by the name of Hunter was appointed to deal with Crichton's troublesome spirit. The bold minister took himself to the kirkyard one dark night with a Bible and a sword to await an encounter with Crichton. He insisted on carrying out his vigil alone, and no one saw what came to pass in the course of the night. When morning came, however, the minister left the churchyard tired but in a confident mood. He never related precisely what happened during those long hours of darkness. He was, however, able to give his assurance that Abraham Crichton's ghost would wander no more. The ghost was never seen after that, but just in case, the people of Sanquhar secured his tombstone in its place over the grave with very sturdy chains. That's it for tonight. Oh my goodness me. We are going to finish up. Ghosts in the House is going to be our next reading. You're good help. Slange. Oh, lovely. That's it. That's it for tonight. What are we up to? 1 hour and 17 minutes. Goodness me. Fingers crossed. We'll be back on Wednesday for Sunday Night Ghost Stories Extra on a Wednesday. Until then, it behoves me to say thank you for watching. Why? Why not? What else are you going to do than watch a confused man from Dudley with holes in his head, drink alcohol, drink ghost stories, and read alcohol? Got that right every time. So until the next time, as ever, thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay out of trouble, and please don't have nightmares. Good night.